with NFL training camp underway, which young drafted players are starting to show up and their stocks are on the rise? Keon Coleman, is Quentin Johnston rebounding, and John Metchie returning to form? We're going to talk about this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. You know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Can you talk to him, baby?
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. It is training camp time. DP, all 32 teams are in training camp. You know what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about some wide receivers, man. We're talking about Mr. Keon Coleman, right? The rookie has to replace Stephon Diggs. How has he been doing thus far? Mr. Second-year player, Quentin Johnston, right? Where there's some various takes on Quentin Johnston and what he could potentially be as an NFL wide receiver. And then we're going to talk about our guy, man. I think we both liked him coming out of Alabama. John Metchie, we know that he's returning. He had the cancer diagnosis. Was it last year before last, and him returning back to form. But man, before we get to this top of the show, why don't you hit him with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports aren't sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Keon Coleman, big 6'3", 6'4", 200-plus pound receiver out of Florida State. And it's a guy that was very polarizing during the 2024 NFL draft process. Yep. Some people were in, a lot of people were out. And it was like, well, he didn't run fast at the combine. We start, really just allowing things that wasn't actual on football play to determine how he would play football. And being early in camp with the Buffalo Bills, reports have been kind of glowing for Keon Coleman. He's making splash plays in camp, right? Listening to The Athletic or reading any of their reports, talked about it, man. He's made one of the biggest draws for the fans this season, this summer, and being able to absolutely flash good route running, especially in Keith. This is something we talked about. He was a good route runner in the short to intermediate portions of the field. He's been a dependable target for Allen whenever Allen calls his number or throws the ball to him. And he's also in 11 personnel, has been taking the snaps at the X, which is something we talked about when we previewed it. But also he's been getting work as the slot receiver as well, Keith. So I think from the reports from camp out of Buffalo, he's showing up. And he's showing up in the way that, okay, you know what you're going to have for Khalil Shakir. You know what you have for Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. To me, he is the missing piece to this offense in terms of, this is a team that wants to win now. They have to win now. You paid your quarterback, all that stuff. You need, after losing two good receivers, one being a top-tier receiver in Stephon Diggs, you need somebody that can come in and alleviate some of, be a target hog in certain situations. And I think Keon Coleman is flashing enough playmaking ability to where Josh Allen's going to trust him as we get into the preseason and then the regular season and the big moments too, Keith. I'm talking about you inside the 30 and it's the fourth quarter. You need that touchdown. You're down 6. A field goal is not going to cut it. I expect him to look Keon Coleman's way.
Yeah, I agree with that, DP. I think is that Keon Coleman is going to do a great job, right? And I like the one part that I like the most is that you talk about how they've been moving him around, right? Because he's one of those guys, DP, that honestly with the slot that nobody thought to have the conversation, right? It was solely, okay, Put him at X wide receiver. Can he win vertical? If he can't win vertical, we don't like him, right? But with every other wide receiver that, not every other, but other wide receivers, right? We've had the conversation, or even the draft community had the conversation about, oh, they're versatile alignment players. You can move them here, move them there. Nobody projected like, hey, if Keon Coleman can line up in a slot and be that big power slot, can he, like you just called it, right, be a target hog and get a lot of targets via that? And when I think about it, I think he can, DP, at the end of the day. And I like the fact that they're moving him around and they're making him a detailed part of, hey, what we're going to do, because just in case he does go against that highly talented cornerback, right, the Derek Stingleys, the Patrick Surtains, right, of the NFL, and you're like, you know what, this is not a good athletic matchup for him, you can kick him inside, right, and let him win in the middle of the field. And this is a big body, like you talk about, 6'3", 6'4", 220 pounds player that, man, if you're talking about a power slot, he would probably profile as one of the better power slots that you can think of.
100%. And to your point, Keith, a lot of, as crazy as it sounds, like Sauce Gardner is an outstanding corner. He's not really trying to go much the slot.
Yep.
Like a lot of these top corners aren't comfortable defending a two-way go. They love being outside when they have the sideline as their helpmate, that extra teammate. I can squeeze you to the sideline, arm bar you, turn, look for the ball, kind of eliminate you from the progression. But when you move a guy into the slot, now it's not just short area quickness you have to deal with, it's his physicality. He's a physical route runner. He's strong. And talking about Keon Coleman, being able to use his body. If you want to be handsy, he can use his hands as well. And he has multiple access points to grass and to find grass. So I think that for him, and even looking at, just kind of reading more of stuff that they said about him, he's been in the red zone, 14, 15, 20 yards out. He's been the guy down the sideline, being able to win, and Allen trusts him and actually puts that ball. And Allen doesn't, he throws rockets, fastballs, man. Like, this is a 120-mile-per-hour pitcher we talking about. And he's still able to throw and zip those passes in. And he's seeing, and that's how you build that trust with a big arm quarterback. When I fire that ball to you, can you make those catches look routine? And Keon Coleman's been doing that. Full extension, using his full body and the arm length, catching it away from his frame, body control to get 2 feet in. There was one play, I think the refs at practice said he was out of bounds, and then somebody had the still shot from the outside, from the out of bounds angle. Keon had 2 feet in the end zone. I'm like, that's 6. Come on, ref, don't do it to my boy. But I think Keon Coleman is building, not just stacking days and making big plays. He's building that trust with him and Josh Allen. And then also Joe Brady, the coaching staff. Like, being able to figure out, all right, that's why I love them moving them around. Like, all right, what kind of mismatches can we create by moving you around? Can we put Dalton Kincaid outside? And because listen, watching the Patriots for as long as I did when Tom Brady was there, there'll be times where they'll come out in traditional sets, audible, and now you got the slot receivers out wide, you got the tight ends inside. So it's like, okay, so are we taking the linebackers and putting them in the slot versus the tight ends and leaving the corners outside with the receivers? Are we putting the linebackers outside? It creates those type of mismatches, and makes the defense just get helter-skelter. And now they're moving in a level of discomfort that they're not happy with, because this isn't how we designed this defensive set to run. So I'm excited to see more. I can't wait to the preseason. I think we have the Hall of Fame game this week. I'm ready. I'm ready for preseason ball, because now I get to see some of these rookies, because teams are just putting pads on now, Keith.
Yeah, I agree 100% with DP. Let's keep this thing going. Let's keep this thing flowing, man. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Quentin Johnston. We're going to LA Chargers, right? They have Harbaugh there. They have Justin Herbert there. We're going to talk about Quentin Johnston. Can he take that next step? Because there have been kind of mixed reviews thus far, especially him coming out of college, but then also his rookie year, mixed reviews of how he played, but also mixed reviews and results. So we're going to talk about Mr. Quentin Johnston coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Guys, as we creep closer to college football and the NFL kicking off, what better time and place to get in on the action than FanDuel? You can bet on all the preseason favorites, MVP or Heisman. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer because FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Second-year wide receiver out of TCU, Quentin Johnston, a guy that people were saying after a rookie. I've never seen people jump off a bandwagon that fast in my life. After one rookie season, it was like, yep, I'm done here. You know,
Well,
it's like I don't want that part of it.
I think there were people who didn't care for him coming out of college. And then when he didn't play well, it was, and that's just how it goes in scouting.
Yeah.
It was the victory lap approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, hey, take the victory lap. I'm right on this guy, XYZ.
No, 100%, right? And reading the reports, of course, you hear about Ladd McConkey. We'll talk about and touch on later on this week. But after a tough rookie campaign, right, the reports have been pretty good for the most part for Quentin Johnston early in camp. And they said he looks stronger, he looks faster, he looks sharper in and out of his breaks. He's getting open. And he's caught nearly everything that has been thrown his way and made the tough plays look routine. And it's like they're saying, and one of the quotes I remember seeing was that, and I loved when I saw, because that was something I criticized him on. You're 6'2", 6'3", play like it. They say he's playing big now. And when you start playing with your full frame and just, man, you're jumping 40 inches, and you're 6'2", 6'3", play like that. Play like that post player to where if Justin Herbert throws that alley-oop to you, I don't care if it's a defender under the rim. Dunk on him, right? Like, just go get the ball. And they're saying he's playing big, but the route running, he's not dropping passes like that. To be able to put that in, I think we talked about this. It was confidence. Like, you could tell he was a rookie. He was in his head. He was dropping passes, and it just started snowballing for him, Keith, where it was like,
Yep.
man, I'm not making the plays that I'm used to making.
Yeah, and it was a volume problem, right? Like certain guys may be, and this can be maybe a basketball reference, right? Is that I kind of have to get into the flow of the game. But when I'm not getting a lot of reps, right? When I'm not getting shots up, when you can't expect me just to come off the bench cold in the third quarter when I've been sitting down, because he was not one of the key, because you still had Mike Williams, even though I think Mike Williams got injured. You still had Keenan Allen, you still had Palmer, right? And then there was still other guys that were trying to get involved in the offense that I think even if you look at maybe percentage of targets or targets where he was targeted, or passing plays where he was targeted, I feel like it was at a very low percentage. So I'm expecting to be a high volume guy, and then I'm coming in the third quarter, haven't been doing anything the entire game, and then I just have to be ready, right? Like maybe that's just something where it's like wasn't dialed in. Now, is that okay? No, but I think it's something that has to be understood also, right? That how many NFL starters can do that, right? Just come off the bench cold in the middle of the third quarter and then throw them 3 passes and they locked in and ready to roll, especially if that's not a role that they're used to playing, right? We just talked about it. They always talk about that with basketball guys, right? Like coming off the bench cold, who can do it? Every starter is not meant to be a bench guy. Every bench guy is not meant to be a starter. So I think if you make a concerted effort to get Quentin Johnston into the routine and the rhythm of the game, I think it plays out well. DP, I seen a quote from Harbaugh, and he kind of talked about it that, hey, I feel like that Quentin Johnston really got a bad rep, like after last year. And I think people looked at the catches, they looked at the drops, but didn't look at the flow of the game, right? And how he could potentially be utilized. And with the old coaching staff, you couldn't put anything past anybody there, right? As far as whether or not people were effective or not and were doing the right thing by the players. They had Justin Herbert and didn't make the playoffs. Like you had Justin Herbert for years and did not make a big time impact. So
coaching malpractice at its finest. That's what that was. What we were seeing with Brandon Staley, and like that was one of the quotes from thank you for Yahoo Sports, Charles Robinson, who's been in the game for a long time. Shout out to him. He talked about it. He made a graphic kind of putting out his quote about it, and he talked about it, like he's playing bigger, more confident, and he's not fighting the ball. He's like, the staff is excited about Quentin Johnston. I think, you know, he's been making some outstanding grabs down the sideline. I remember seeing one of the clips where Herbert kind of threw it over the outside shoulder, and he just plucked it out of the air. It's out in front of him. Use your arm length, use that wingspan, go ahead and catch that ball. And doing this, similar to Keon Coleman, QJ, this is how you get those targets. Now, and I think Charles Robinson talked about this. He's like, be wary of talking about the actual usage, and be cautious of the volume for Justin Herbert in this Greg Roman offense. Because as we've talked about ever since the Greg Roman hire, they're going to run the football, right? So it's like, that's just who he is, right? He don't have a Lamar Jackson. That's why I'm interested to see how his passing concepts look, because like, you don't have Colin Kaepernick, you don't have Tyrod Taylor, you don't have Lamar Jackson. That's not who Justin Herbert is. He is he has straight line athleticism, but he's more of a passing quarterback.
Yeah, he's not those. He's
not that.
He's not that.
Like, he is not that. They don't have the tight end talent that Baltimore had, that he had in San Fran with Vernon Davis and Delaney Walker, right? He doesn't have Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews and Pat Ricard, and he doesn't have that. So it's like, now let's see what this passing offense looks like. But these young receivers are stepping up and are up to the task for them. So there's like, watch out, pay attention, to be cautious with the volume for Justin Herbert in this offense. But it's, at the end of the day, I think for Quentin Johnston, making the plays he's making now, right? Not being just resourceful, but reliable, showing that reliability to your quarterback to say, okay, third downs, yeah, I could look to Ladd, but it's 3rd and 15. Like, Ladd's not going to get me what I need on 3rd and 15. Quentin Johnston can. Or if you're playing a team like Spags, right, who can mix and match coverages, he's going to show you something and play something totally different post-snap. Spags will show you cover 3, but it's actually man-to-man coverage, right? He'll show you man-to-man, but it's actually cover 4. And if you're going against one of them situations with Spags and that talented secondary he has, and they're playing heavy press man, right? What if they take, Trent McDuffie and throw